Edward Griffin is iconic. He wrote the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, and one thing that everybody knows about the crypto space is that the people who really kind of spurred this on and got it going were people who believed in individual liberty and financial freedom, who really stand against government intervention into our monetary systems. And with Edward Griffin, man, he's got a lot of background and experience. He's iconic, as I said earlier, as far as his stance on these things. So his views on crypto are something that I find fascinating, and I know you will too. So let's dive into my interview that I did with Edward Griffin. So now let's look at what's happening in the world. Do you have an orientation or opinion about how blockchain and cryptocurrency might change all this?
Well, yes, I have an opinion on that. I'm not an expert on cryptocurrencies. I'm very much a student on that. But I'm a little bit concerned at what I think I have learned.
Okay.
How shall I cover this? In the beginning of my exposure to it, I was very impressed by the idea that blockchain technology was outside of the control of the governments and the banks, and you could build in definite limits as to the quantity and so forth. And when that quantity was reached, that was the end of it. So we have a limited supply of money, and privacy was protected. All those things. Well, this is wonderful. This was a godsend. So I was thinking, okay, I'll watch this very carefully. The one thing it did not have, and my list of ideal qualities for money, was that it didn't have intrinsic value. When the plug is pulled and the power goes out, and there's no digital, you know, what have you got? You know? And at some time in everybody's life, the plug will be pulled, the power will go out. We just don't know for how long. So there's that bothered me a little bit, but everything else looked really, really good. And then recently, Patrick, I started to find out some things that began to worry me, and that is, first of all, on the issue of limited quantity. After the blockchain technology had pushed Bitcoin into the public view, and it was taking off like a rocket, and we know that Bitcoin is limited in the number of tokens, other currencies, other tokens started to come in as competition, and others, and now we have thousands of them. So the idea of a limited quantity is gone, you see, and they're all interchangeable, one to the other. So all of a sudden, this mirage of limited quantity is gone. It'll expand as fast as people want it to expand and create new tokens and keep putting new ones into the market. Well, I didn't like that, but then I found out the most disturbing thing of all is that the biggest banks and now government agencies, international government agencies like the IMF, are deeply involved in developing cryptocurrency technology. And the more I learned, and still am learning on that, so I want to make sure that nobody takes my view as the gospel here, because there are a lot of things I still don't know. But it looks like this really is the dream of the globalists, the totalitarians that want a cashless society. This is it. This is a cashless society. The digital currency is it. As some people call it, it's the mark of the beast. Wait a minute. All of us people, we who want the opposite of that are promoting it. Did they trick us? What happened here, you know? So this is where I am in my point of investigation right now. I know for a fact that the largest exchanges and the Bitcoin, not the Bitcoin, but the cryptocurrencies, the most popular ones, are dominated by banking interests today. And they're not stupid.
Well, do you think, because in one view, when I looked at it, and I'm like you, I would not call myself an expert. I've just been having a lot of conversations and been reading, what I can. But one view was that it was almost like the banks and the government. Because when this first started coming out, I had the same reaction. I'm like, this is the utopia. A currency exchange amongst people with no middleman, no bank, right? It's the closest thing to a laissez-faire capitalist system that I could see. Can't be manipulated by the government. But I said the government's got to make it illegal. I can't imagine that they'll allow people to utilize and trade because their whole control is through the currency.
Yeah.
And so if that were to go away, so I figured, okay, well, it was, they thought it was insignificant, and then maybe decided, oh, this is becoming real. Like, the JP Morgan, the bank, did a 180 on crypto. At first they almost said, almost like you said, insignificant. We ignore it.
Yes.
And then it started becoming very significant, and now they're turning around saying, we want to see if we can grab control or seize this, and still now this is maybe they're seeing as their future also. So it is sort of like, how does this thing play out?
Yeah, we're in the middle of a very mysterious game right now, and we don't know what rules are being followed. That's our problem. We're not on the inside. But here's what I think it looks like to me. The IMF is actively involved with cooperating with governments around the world and banking systems too, to index every human labor activity and every product with a number. When you fill out your income tax, they ask you what occupation is yours, and there's a number. You look it up in the big chart, and oh, here I am. That's my number, 5 or 6 digits or something. They're expanding that number, so they'll be able to have an identity for every conceivable human effort and every product. Is it a 1/4-inch screw or a 1-inch screw? Is it left thread or right thread? And all this different number. Everything is being indexed. Why? So that all of these individual private cryptocurrencies, which we're so happy with, can be used in an interactive way so that we can use any of them to buy anything. And that would be wonderful if you had your cryptocurrency. You could buy a cup of coffee or go and pay your rent with it or anything. Wouldn't that be wonderful? People would line up for that. But in the process, it has to go out of the private blockchains or the cryptocurrency indexing into the central system, which authenticates everything. Now we've got metadata attached to it. We know where it came from, how often it was used, and it wouldn't take long to figure out who it came from because they can track several of them in a sequence and line it up with other data. They plan to identify everybody, even though it's secret in the individual origins. By the time it gets cleared through the central house, it'll all be identifiable, and they'll know everything about every transaction. Furthermore, now governments don't have to really charge taxes or collect taxes anymore from you and me. We don't have to pay our taxes. All they got to do is say, we want 2% on all transactions digitally. And when you pay for a $1 item, you will pay $1.02. And you just pay it, or they'll deduct it out of the seller side. And they don't have to worry about collecting taxes anymore. It'll just be automatically withdrawn from this cryptocurrency system. And if a government fines you for something, you did something naughty, they don't have to collect the money from you. They just take it right out of your account. This is where I think it is heading.
That would be the opposite of what the original intention is.
Exactly the opposite, yeah.
And
I might add, in a way, there's a parallel to the Federal Reserve System. We got the Federal Reserve Act, which was the opposite entirely of what people thought it was supposed to do. And generally, the same people today are doing it in the cryptocurrency world.
I think it's critical that we're hearing kind of how you're seeing it because of your decades of experience and just watching all the things that have happened over time and how you've had sort of this very well-researched inside view to understand what's behind the curtain, so to speak. So I'm sure a lot of your gut instinct on this is well-founded. And I guess the disturbing thing is, and I thought the whole point of crypto is, hey, the blockchain doesn't require any kind of a clearinghouse. So that's why it's great. Everybody can trade, and there's no government and no bank that has to clear. But you're saying that they're setting themselves up to now say, oh, we don't need income tax anymore, which incidentally has been proposed. Do away with income tax and let's just have a use tax basically on transactions and let that fund the government.
Or even worse, they could cut you off completely. Just say, you're a bad boy. You're an enemy of the state. You don't get to make any transactions at all.
But how does the government do that? Because the blockchain exists outside of the government.
Well, the thing is, it can't do it in the blockchain or whatever. There may be other things than blockchain at work here eventually. They'll simply do it at the clearinghouse. Now, that doesn't mean that the individual blockchains and currencies couldn't work within their own circle.
Right.
They absolutely can.
It's just when you start crossing them?
But when you start to cross over. So if you had your own little community, you could live within your own community fine. You know. But once you want to go out into the big world, which most people will want to do, then you have got to give up all of those advantages.
Because you're trading different currencies, so you got to go outside the block to get into somebody else's.
And even now, without all of that, we know that the transaction time for blockchain right now is horribly long. We were told it was instantaneous. Well, now what is it? 3 minutes? 7 minutes? 20 minutes?
It takes a while.
It takes a while. This is already bogged down. You cannot buy a cup of coffee and wait 20 minutes for it to clear.
Right.
So already people are being forced out of the blockchain into side chains, which will pool resources and process those quickly and then dump them all in as an aggregate at one time.
That's a good point.
And that is where the fees will be charged. So we're back to the bank fees again. So in other words, whether they designed it from the beginning or not, whether they just figured out how to exploit it later, doesn't make any difference. They're figuring out a way to convert this whole cryptocurrency world into their dream of a cashless society. Now, does that mean I'm opposed to it? No, not at all. I'm totally for cryptocurrencies. But what I am saying is that we have to recognize that there are some problems there.
Some dangers there.
We can't just blindly walk into this trap. We have to figure out ways to prevent that from being built or to circumvent it if we can.
And the appetite by these malevolent forces for a cashless system is saying, hey, when people are trading in cash amongst themselves, we don't know. We can't track that. Now, if it's cashless, we can track everything.
Yes.
Wow. Well, so those are the hazards, I guess, of crypto versus the benefits.
So. And not only that, all of your wealth, your cash wealth at least, has got to be in the banks.
Yes.
You can't have it anyplace else because that's the only way it gets spent. If it's not in the bank originally, you got to put it in there before you can spend it.
That's right.
See.
Yeah.
So that means that you can't withdraw your money from the banks. Now, since you're forced to have your deposits in banks, they can charge you 0 interest or minus 5% interest. They can start taking fees. Instead of paying you interest, they'll give you negative interest, and they'll take money from you, whether you like it or not. That's another reason they like the cashless society.
Yep. Wow. So that certainly now paints a picture of how why they're not freaking out.
They're not freaking out. No. We should be freaking out.
We should be freaking out. Thanks. I might have a sleepless night tonight, but I'd rather know what's so than be in ignorance and bliss.
Well, that's the truth. You have to know what's going on. You can't protect yourself. So it's sometimes unpleasant, but I'd rather know the unpleasant truth and live in a dream world, and then wake up some morning and find that I'm in hell.
Well, that completes my interview with G. Edward Griffin on crypto. And again, this guy is iconic. He has started a movement, I believe, in the world when he wrote The Creature from Jekyll Island. And his views on crypto are something that I think we all need to pay attention to. So I'm glad you were here with me. Well, that completes episode 7 of our 9-part docuseries. We're really getting there. So thank you for being here with me. I love bringing this information to you, and I'm hoping that you're taking notes, you're learning, you're sharing what you're learning with other people. One of the things I know is that the best way to learn is to teach. Meaning, once you learn something here, teach it to somebody else, and it's going to help sink it into your mind a little bit deeper. I'll also remind you that you can own this series, Crypto Revealed, with some great bonuses. We have multiple packages, affordable to anybody. So just take a look at what we have. Know that you have our sincere gratitude when you invest, and if you already did, like so many of you have, let me just say thank you. A deep and sincere thank you. And if you haven't, I think you should check it out. There's a lot of great content here, and I think it will provide value for you into your future. So that's it. Episode 7 is done. We're going into episode 8 next. Look forward to seeing you there.
the Fed has cattle prodded everyone into riskier and riskier assets in order to stimulate the economy. And when you do that, they choose riskier and riskier things. We've seen this evidenced by a surge in VC investing, a surge in stocks, a surge in Bitcoin and crypto. So Bitcoin is a self-driving car for the economy. There is no need for input by humans to choose an inflation rate or to mess with other levers. It simply just exists and continues to stay steady, and everything else moves around it. When we look at year over year, I mean, we're looking at like 10x growth, 100x growth. These are the numbers that you see working at crypto companies in a bull run.
More traders that migrate and the more investors that migrate over to crypto, the more robust it becomes. It's back over 2 trillion in market cap. These are all things that are happening because of adoption. When you've got more demand from all these new participants in the market and a declining supply, that tells me that the asset should be moving up in price. As traders always say, if you don't like the picture right now, zoom out. Bitcoin still looks like lower left to upper right. It's just, zooming to the upside. This is the next frontier. This is the next opportunity.